Hello, everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of the Nordic Football Podcast. I'm Steve Wyss. I'm joined by Jonathan Fadugba. The Swedish season has now finished, and we're just one round away from the Eliteserien on its end game as well. So, Jonathan, how are you doing today, my friend?
Hi, Steve. Hi, everybody. Yes, nice to be back. We've had a crazy end to the season in Sweden, which we're going to discuss in due course. And of course, from what I can see, there's been a bit of crazy times in Norway as well, hasn't there? So, yeah, we've got a lot to talk about on this show, and we're getting towards the end of the year now. So, coming towards this season's finale, aren't we, of the podcast for this year? So, good to be with you, my friend. How are you feeling?
Well, I'm a bit better than last week. I'm still a bit under the weather. Got some sinus and ear problems now, of all things. But I'm not been myself for like 3.5 weeks, Jonathan. I've just, I must say thanks to anyone. There was a few comments last week asking how, wishing me to get well very soon. So I appreciate that from all you listeners. But I'm hanging in there. I'm better than I was. And, if I still sound a little bit rough, and that's the reason why. But certainly raring to go again. And, well, we're going to have to start, aren't we, in the Allsvenskan, the final round. And it was actually pretty dramatic, wasn't it? It was plenty of action going at bottom of the table, top of the table. And, it literally went right down to the final whistle.
Yeah, it was a bit of a mad ending, really. Mad ending. It was a strange sort of round because kind of in some games there was just nothing going on at all. Well, not nothing going on, but it was kind of like low drama and then little bits of drama here and there. So it was, you kind of had to keep your eye on it. Obviously, we were covering it on the day on Twitter at Nordic Footpod. Going into the game, as we talked about on last week's show, you knew that Malmö just needed a point to win the league. And of course, if they lost home to Halmstad, then AIK could sneak in there and win the title. Didn't get off to the best of starts, AIK, but the headline is Malmö are champions, of course. They did it, but not in a convincing way, really. 0-0 draw at home to Halmstad. I did say to you last week, Steve, that I just fancied Halmstad to do something. But ultimately, not enough. They've done, to be honest, to go to the best team in the league and get a 0-0 draw is a massive achievement on the final day of the season when, that team kind of needs something. But at the same time, it wasn't enough for them. So, it was settled in both ends of the table. Malmö win the title on goal difference. Incredible. Just by 5 goals, basically. Their goal difference is plus 30. Their goal difference is plus 28. And AIK's is plus 20. So by 8 goals, level on points, 59 points each. And Halmstad, it was confirmed, obviously, on the back of that result. They go into the relegation playoff where they will play Helsingborg. So, yeah, a crazy day. I mean, obviously, we'll talk about AIK in a minute. What happened in that game? That was pretty mad as well. But and unfortunately, just in terms of Halmstad, we'll talk about it in a minute as well. Degerfors managed to get a late goal against Östersunds away, 87th minute to get them out of it and keep them in Allsvenskan. So yeah, I mean, if they hadn't have got those extra 2 points, they would have gone into the relegation playoff, and Halmstad would have been safe. So yeah, crazy, things going on both top end and the bottom end of the table. But the headline act, as I said, Malmö FF champions again. Massive congratulations to Malmö.
Yes, congratulations to Malmö. I'm just going to list the results from the final round. AIK 4, Sirius 2, Häcken 0, Djurgården 1, Hammarby 5, Kalmar 3, that was a wild one, Malmö 0, Halmstad 0, Norrköping 1, AFK Gothenburg 2, Örebro 2, Elfsborg 3, Östersund 0, Degerfors 1, and Varberg 0, Mjällby 3. Now, obviously, let's start in Stockholm, actually, because everyone was expecting AIK to easily win this game. But they actually fell 2-0 down very early on in this match. It reminded me a little bit how sort of Djurgården fell behind against Varberg the week before. The difference on this occasion was AIK seemed to have the offensive strength and a better sort of plan to come back into the game. And they actually did well, didn't they, to turn this match around in the end?
Yeah, they did well. I mean, it was crazy. They started terribly, didn't they? And this is the thing with the AIK. I mean, they knew that it wasn't in their hands. They needed a win for Halmstad, which was always probably stretching it. Let's be honest. top of the table against one of them in the bottom three. I mean, Malmö couldn't really ask for a better fixture, if we're honest about it. Especially a team that's so low scoring. You know, that one thing you knew probably was that they weren't going to concede any goals. But it was could Halmstad get a goal to sort of do AIK a favour and get them the title? Of course, Varberg had already, the AIK fans had already paid for Varberg's massive party. I think they would have paid 10 times that if Halmstad could have got a result. But they couldn't even get their own house in order, and obviously went 2-0 down. Adam Stahl, 13th minute, Christian Kawaku, who, by the way, has had a really good season. We might talk about him in a minute. He made it 2-0 in the 21st minute, and you thought to yourself, wow, AIK have absolutely bottled this. Just like we've seen all season, haven't we? We've seen Djurgården bottle things. We've seen teams not really take advantage when they can. Whenever it seems like they're going to win the league, they drop points. Even Malmö, you can include in that. It's not been a vintage season for them, really, in terms of results-wise. They haven't been that convincing when it's time to get the job done. But yeah, AIK, to their credit, turned things around. Nicholas Stefanelli scored 2 goals before half-time, so that really eased the pressure. They missed some big chances as well. There was 1 or 2 really good chances. They had a one-on-one at one point where saved by the keeper, should have scored really, and you could see the pressure was on. AIK fans were turned out in their numbers, and then just after half-time, Papagiannopoulos and Henrik Goitom in the 90th minute. That was the really lovely moment. Of course, Goitom, grabbing a goal. I think it was his 100th goal, and his final goal, of course, for AIK. He's retiring. He becomes one of the team's top scorers, and legend of the club that we talked about last week, the retiring hero. But it just wasn't enough for AIK in the end. And I think if you look at it over the course of the season, I think if you'd have said to them at the beginning of this season, you'd lose the title. If you'd said to them at the beginning of the season, you'd end up level on points with Malmö, I think they would have been absolutely delighted at that. But obviously, within the context of it, if you say to them, you're going to lose the title on goal difference, it's a sickening one. But the one thing I would say about AIK, you just got to remember how far they've come. That this was a team last season that was in total chaos when Rickard Norling left, and there was even thoughts that maybe they might get relegated at one point. They were that bad, and you've got to give massive credit to Bartosz Grzyłak. He's come in, he turned things around last season. They had a much better run of form in the second half of last season, and they've just got better and better this season, and managed to put in a title run. Had a really good spell in August. July and August went in a long period of unbeaten games. But really, when you look at it, if you just look at the two games I would point out and say it was really difficult for them. Halmstad away, they lost, obviously, in November, and obviously Malmö away. That game could have gone either way, I think, in that game, really. It was a kind of a game where they just didn't show enough. If they'd have even got a point from that game, they'd be champions. Even if they got a point from Halmstad, they'd be champions. So you can also look at Degerfors away. I think that was a poor game to lose. You're losing to Halmstad, Degerfors, both of them in relegation playoffs. I think that's kind of where they've lost it, really. A point in any of those games, they'd have been champions. But to summarize it all, you can't really knock AIK because, as I said, Grzyłak's put in a really good showing with his team. He's reblended the squad. They didn't spend a huge amount of money or anything like that to turn the squad around. It's mainly been good coaching, and I think they can take credit from this season, even though it is going to sting a little bit losing it in this way.
Yeah, just to confirm the final league positions, actually, Malmö first on 59 points, AIK also 59 points. The goal difference, I think, was about a 10 difference between Malmö and AIK, something like that anyway. Djurgården on 57 points in third, Elfsborg 55, and Hammarby in fifth on 53 points. So 6 points separating the top 5. Pretty damn close. I actually sensed there wasn't that much disappointment with AIK. I think maybe it's because they finished the season so well with 4 straight wins. They were never really in control of the title race or anything like that. I think they were delighted that Goitom scored late on. And I think they were ecstatic they finished above Diff as well. I think you could almost sense around the stadium when they went 2-0 down. Forget the title. Djurgården are going to finish above us. They did not want that at all. And they come back well. But, I mean, obviously, the title was in Malmö's hands. And there's 2 matches intertwined here, really. Malmö-Halmstad and then Östersund's Degerfors, with Halmstad needing to just match Degerfors' results. I mean, I've got to be honest. I mean, over the course of the season, I think Halmstad, they've not been a great entertaining side, have they? I can't knock them in this fixture for the tactics. It was the best way to go about it. Try and frustrate Malmö, keep it tight, and then you never know late on, see what the state of play is and maybe go for it. Malmö themselves, do you think they had good control on this game? Or were you a little bit sort of disappointed by them?
You mean in this game or
In this particular game? Yeah. Do you think they got the right approach? Because I think it felt at times to me like they were just very passive, and then it did get to a stage where like, hold on, we better push for this and get a goal, and they couldn't get it.
Well, yeah, I mean, that was what I thought was a bit of a weird thing about this end to the season. It was kind of like, there was a point during the matches where you knew that both teams could play 0-0 and they'd get what they wanted, and you had a feeling of kind of like what they call it in Italy. I think they call it a biscotti or something like that, where biscotti, where they they basically agreed to just play out a draw, and it kind of looked at one point that maybe that's what's going to happen. But then obviously the goal, Hampstead knew that if Degerfors scored, then they need to win. But they, winning. Let's be honest, winning was never really on the cards for Hampstead. They're a team that likes drawing games. They're a team that likes not conceding. I think I liked your tweet about it, saying you really hope they go down. Hope they go down. I'm the opposite. I love Hampstead. I think that I know it's kind of like, I was going to say they've been a breath of fresh air to the league, but probably they've been a breath of fresh zeros. I think it's like polos, 0-0-0. But I think that I've enjoyed having them. I don't know what it is about them. I've quite enjoyed that just determination to be just so rigid and kind of boring. I've quite enjoyed it, and I think it's the art of defending. You've got to admire the art of defending in a way. Like to be able to go to these teams and get clean sheets consistently. I've really liked the way Hampstead have kind of done things. Let's see how that translates, because the irony is, in a relegation playoff, how do you can't play out 2-0 nils, can you? Because then you've got penalties maybe. So they've got to approach it in some way, in a positive way. So we'll learn a lot about them, I think, in that playoff. In terms of Malmö, yeah, of course, this is what I think they're. Thomason was happy. He's come out afterwards and said he loves being at the club, and he's delighted. Listen, there's two sides to this story. There's number one, I didn't think they approached the game very well. I didn't think they played very well. I think there's been a lot of players in the last few weeks that have underperformed. Players like Berman Savic, I think he got taken off in this game midway through the second half, and kind of didn't look that happy. And I've expected a lot more from Malmö in this last part of the season, to be honest. They haven't really, was it to do with Champions League maybe, and it's just taken it out of them? Obviously, they've got still a game this week in the Champions League. I think it's against Juventus. Did that maybe take it out of them? But okay, they've only lost one game since October against Mjällby at home, but draws with Varberg, draw with Häcken, draw with Halmstad. I just haven't been massively convinced with them really after that amazing run. To get to the Champions League group stages, where they were so good. I think they gone off the boil a little bit since then. Obviously, if you look at, you go further back in September, draws with Norrköping, draws with Djurgården, just kind of not really been hugely convincing. Even the games they've won, kind of 3-2 late on against Sirius, last minute winner, which has basically won them the title from Cholak. They were 2-1 down in that game, of course, 2 goals in last 15 minutes. Even the AIK game, they won 1-0. It was kind of like it was a decent goal, but they weren't massively better than AIK. I thought they were, they're a very solid team, aren't they? But they haven't been spectacular this season, I don't think, under Thomason. And I mentioned there's two sides to this. The other side of this is, great, they've won the title, and we can talk about the scenes at the end when the players, the fans rushed the pitch. It was incredible. I don't know if you've seen it, but the absolute rush they did when they final whistle. And I think some of the Halmstad players were scared. They started running for their lives. It was like something out of Game of Thrones or Jumanji or something like that. The way they were running off. Because they were, you had like thousands of people running straight towards them on the pitch. It looked, I enjoyed the scenes, and they kind of went viral, didn't I? I think Sport Bible picked it up, and all these kind of viral Twitter accounts picked it up, which they rarely pick up much Swedish football, but watching, I was kind of a bit worried in a way. I was like, this is a serious rush, stampede type thing. But the other side of it, as I said, is that I think when the dust settles and they celebrate this win, I think they will look at it and say, what next? Because I wouldn't be surprised if there's a little bit of pressure on Jon Dahl Tomasson at the end of the season. I just don't think they've really done enough. There's been little rumblings behind the scenes of maybe managerial changes potentially. Even Thomason himself said they didn't play well, and he was very nervous during the match. So he's kind of accepted it himself. So I think that the headline is that this is a fantastic title win. Obviously, Malmö back-to-back champions now. But I think behind the scenes, there'll be a kind of like, why haven't we won this by more points? Why has it been so tense? Why did we not even be able to beat Halmstad on the final day? And then I think there'll be a conversation as like, is Thomason the man to take us forward in the long term for this club. Because one final point on that, Steve, we had their new chief scout on the show recently, of course, Robin Asterhead. You can go back and listen to that interview. The Varnamo manager who's moving to Malmö. They've brought back Andreas Georgsson from Arsenal. There's a lot of boardroom changes behind the scenes going on. They're revamping stuff behind the scenes to really try and go again. And I just wonder if they're going to maybe look around and say, is this the man we want to bank all our chips on for next season and seasons to come? So, but yeah, ultimately, I don't want to end it on a negative because they're champions and they've been incredible. They've got the best players. They've got the best manager, you can say. Winning two in a row, you can't knock him. So you got to give credit to them. But I do think there'll be little rumblings after this, regardless.
Yeah, the league table doesn't lie. Champions are champions, and the best team won the league. But I've got to be honest, I don't think they're that good a team. Across the face of the season. But I do expect them next season with probably a better backroom staff organisation. They've got decent money from the Champions League. I'll be surprised if they're not pushing the 70-point mark next season, to be honest, Jonathan. Just based on sheer resources, I don't see anyone getting near them, to be honest, even if Thomason is in charge. They did what they have to do here. And let's focus on the other side of the coin here for Halmstad, because I actually think Degerfors played a bit of a blinder, in Östersunds. I don't know how they didn't score in the first 86 minutes or whatever it was. They created enough chances. Like they were panicking, they were clutching at chances, and in the end they gambled so much that probably Östersund should have scored. A better side would have punished them, but then they got the goal with 4 minutes to go, which is always like the perfect time, isn't it? Because Halmstad just had no time to react. I mean, it's doubtful whether they would have able to win anyway, Halmstad, but it didn't give them any time, did it? And Degerfors, I don't know whether the stars have aligned a bit the last couple of weeks with those 2 wins, but it just felt like it fell their way perfectly,
Well, ultimately, I mean, I just want to round off on Malmö. I mean, Thomason himself came out and said if we weren't in Europe, we would have won the league 2 months ago. So he's already kind of not got his excuses in, but he's already kind of made the point that Europe has slowed them down a bit, which maybe you can argue, maybe that's right. It's rare that Swedish teams get to the group stages. You're playing Saturday, Tuesday, Saturday. It's a different schedule. It's not easy for teams like that. You're playing high level opposition, running a lot, probably you don't have much of the ball against the likes of Chelsea, Juventus. So maybe you can argue that, but at the end of the day, Malmö want to be in the Champions League group stage every season. So they're going to have to figure a way out of doing that because, ultimately they want to be in those group stages every year. So it's not really a great list of excuses. But at the same time, you can understand it in a way, and they've got the job done by the skin of their teeth. If you talk about Degerfors, Degerfors, I mean, they couldn't have had to be honest, I got to say, the schedule couldn't have been more fortunate for Degerfors in terms of the final day of the season. If you looked at it at the beginning of the season and you looked at the final game and you thought, if you need to win this game to stay up, would you take it? Degerfors away to a team that has completely gone. The Östersunds have been finished for weeks. I think they've lost 5 in a row. They've only had 2 draws since September. Apart from that, every other game's been a defeat. Not one since September either. They were completely finished by this point. They were on the end of their tether. I saw them against EFK Göteborg, and they're just waiting for the season to end. It's all gone terribly wrong there. Although I did learn this week that Daniel Schimberg's been acquitted, I think, in a court. So might talk about that later because I don't have the full details. But I read a headline saying that he's kind of had a ruling go in his favor. But Östersunds, the chief scouts also just left Adil Kizil, so they're just the manager's leaving. I think everything's just falling apart. So Degerfors, they couldn't have asked for an easier game. Even I watched some of the game in play, and it was like the tempo was really low. Östersunds just didn't have anything to play for at all, really. There wasn't, there was nothing really there. You couldn't have asked for an easier game. And contrast that to Halmstad. If Malmö were out of the title race, you could say, okay, maybe they can go there and get a win. But when Malmö need to get a result to win, if Malmö had won a title 2 months ago, maybe they rotate the squad and it actually makes it easier for Halmstad. Maybe they'd have got a win. But the fact they had to get a result, that makes it just, there's nowhere harder to go than Malmö if you need a result. So I felt for Halmstad in a way, but that's the way it goes. And Degerfors ended up getting the job done. Really for me, Degerfors, this all hinged on the game against Dorshopik. The week before they were incredible in that match. on the back of 4 straight defeats. And when they lost at home to Hammarby 4-1 2 weeks prior, you thought, this is looking rough for them, after losing 4 games in a row. That Norrköping game probably just gave them the confidence because they absolutely destroyed Norrköping in that game. And I think that's probably just helped them over the line. And then, it's probably just given them that mental feeling of getting that 3 points, just one more push. And they've been able to do it. So, yeah, fair play to them. Listen, I like what I've seen from Degerfors this season. I think I had them in pre-season. I thought they'd go down. But at the end of the day, they've shown some innovation. Yeah, I thought they'd be bottom. I think that was my prediction. So I did actually get Halmstad relegation playoff correct. So I'm happy about that one. Degerfors have shown a little bit this season. They've had a really good striker in Edvardsen, second top scorer in the league. He'll get a move this winter, I'm sure, to a bigger club. There's already talks about that. And all in all, that's probably just been the difference. They've had a goal scorer, whereas the likes of Örebro, Östersunds, Halmstad just haven't quite had that ability really. And tactically, they've been flexible and fair play to them. They're going to be in Allsvenskan in 2022.
I've watched quite a bit of Degerfors this year. And a fair bit of Halmstad, actually. And I've got to be honest, I prefer the way that Degerfors go about football. They've given it a go. They've lost 16 games of football, but they've only drawn 4 times. And I've said many times in various aspects of football, draws don't really do you that much good in the long run. Halmstad obviously set out their stall this year. They've had plan A, and that's it. They have no plan B or plan C. Every single match, no matter who they're playing against, and you've got to give them credit for knuckling down against some of these big teams, and they've took a lot of good points off these big teams. But it's the same strategy against anyone in the bottom half as well, and I think that's what's probably cost them. I think they are unlucky, by the way, to finish on 32 points and not be automatically saved. That will not happen very often. In a normal season, that would be enough to keep you up automatically. I think that's a bit harsh on them, but. If they do go down in the playoff, I think they may look back on some of these games that they could have perhaps gambled a bit more on against teams around them. But I mean, they're unbelievable. They're an unbelievable statistical side, Halmstad. 21 goals scored is the least in the league. 26 conceded is the second best defensive record. They've had 25 out of 30 games end under 2.5 goals. I've covered French football for over a decade. And even I've never known a team as low scoring as them. I mean, their home record for unders, they've had 14 out of 15 games at home ended under 2.5 goals, an average of 1.3 goals per game. I mean, they've not exactly entertained their fans, have they? And
it's crazy.
They're an unbelievable. I've never known anything like it. I mean, it's sensational, isn't it, in a lot of ways?
One thing I will say on that, Steve, is that, we've got a Wisecout blog out this month on Hacken, which you can look out for. And just, according to Wisecout data, Halmstad are actually in the top 10 for goal XG. 44 XG, 21 goals scored. So when you really look at it for next season, that's got to even itself out.
That's ridiculous.
That's unbelievable. So they actually got much higher XG than Degerfors, which is 38. So when you look at the fundamentals, that's what I mean about Halmstad. I actually don't think they're that bad a team, and I really like how their defensive shape is. If they can maybe get a good goal scorer, if they can sort 1 or 2 little pieces out and survive, I think they've got the makings of a decent team next season, but this, the challenge is, can they change that XG? Because they've got a better XG than EF Core, better than Malmö, better than Kalmar, better than Sirius, better than Varberg, better than Degerfors. So, it's not terrible. Their XG is only 2 goals less than Elfsborg, but ultimately 21 goals is incredible, isn't it? 20 goal difference.
Have they just been? Maybe they've just been really unlucky, or maybe they've missed a lot of penalties. That it does seem. I've never known anything like that either, to be honest. They're breaking boundaries, aren't they, Halmstad? I mean, one thing I'll say is, look, good luck to both teams in this playoff. Helsingborg. I mean, I actually hope Helsingborg go up, because I've always had a little bit of a soft spot for them, I must say. That's one of the other reasons that I would sort of prefer Halmstad to go down. But if Halmstad do stay up, I would be interested to see if they can sort of build on this season and improve those goal scoring statistics, because that would show progress. They've been unlucky, like I said, in terms of the points. It sounds like they've really been unlucky with XG as well. So, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on them, but they're an incredible case, almost a unique case of stuff.
That's the thing, Steve. I love teams where, what I don't like is teams where there's just nothing to say about them. I know I saw your tweet and you were like, you don't like them and you want them out of it. But for me, Halmstad, it's like there's something to talk about with Halmstad. It's incredible what they've done. 14 draws. There's always something. I mean, I know it's not exactly entertaining. I wouldn't want, like I said before, I wouldn't want to get a season to get there. But they're, like you said, they are a curious case, and you don't get that often. If you compare them to someone like Sirius, for example, we've not really talked much about Sirius this season. They've probably done more. They've scored, 18 more goals, but just haven't really been on our radar. Whereas Halmstad, they've got a defined style. They're committed to their way of playing. They're quite innovative in that way. That they're unforgiving. They've given a lot of challenges to the bigger teams. They've got some really good results this season, in their credit. I got to say, I mean, Helsingborg, they are quite a big club, but if we see Halmstad in the league next season, I wouldn't be unhappy. I like what I've seen from Halmstad, I've got to be honest, and fair play to them. But yeah, it's going to be a big challenge against Helsingborg because they're quite a big club. And one thing I'd say about Helsingborg, they've got a good striker, so I think that Halmstad's defense is going to have to be really solid again. Which, let's face it, they're back-to-back 0-0s. Why not?
Yeah, the first leg is on the 11th of December. The second leg is on the 14th. I mean, just look at the bookmakers' odds here. Halmstad are actually even money favourites to win the away match. So the bookmakers are not daft, are they? They must surely rate Halmstad as a much better side than Helsingborg there. I'm surprised by those odds, actually. But be interested to see how those two playoff matches go. And, obviously, it's a big impact on this particular podcast, isn't it? Because whoever goes down, we won't really be talking about them for a year, will we? So, I mean, have you got a prediction?
One final thing on that before we move on. Just going back to the title race, we talk about Malmö and AIK. If Djurgården had beaten Varberg last week, they'd be champions. I mean, that just tells you the fine margins we had this season. We look at them as, we not even mentioned them on this show, but I mean, that's how close it was. Literally home to Varberg boys. And if they won that game, they'd be champions.
I must say, I'll give credit to Djurgården, Elfsborg and Hammarby for doing a very professional job in the final round. They were battling for, between second to fifth. And that's important because, European spots were at stake there. That's really important. Fourth place, Elfsborg. If someone wins the Swedish Cup in the top three and it's not them, they're going to be in Europe next season. That's a big thing. So, fair play for Djurgården. They ground out a good 1-0, didn't they, at Häcken? I mean, look, we'll have an end-of-season podcast where we review each league. And, that is where we probably will go into a bit more detail with some of these sides. Every side will get talked about in some capacity. But, there were very, very small margins in that title, in that battle for the top five. There were very small margins in this battle for the playoff position. We had two very, very poor teams this year at the bottom two. I don't think we'll have that too often in future. Like, they're two shocking sides in terms of results. I would imagine a more competitive league next year, and it can get a lot more closer, overall there.
Yeah, for sure.
So, there's a couple of other things I want to talk about here. Going into the Super N, there's been a shock relegation, I do believe, Jonathan. Do you want to tell us about this?
Yeah, this really, Malmö have won the title now 25 times. And, just been sort of, you dig around, this is, they're the most successful club now in terms of what they already were, but, the most successful team in terms of Allsvenskan wins and that kind of thing. And you look around at the bigger clubs in the league and that kind of thing. And, when you do that, I been looking at the historic table, who's won the league most, that kind of thing. First ever winners was Swedish Championship. Well, this is according to Wikipedia, so I don't know if it's exactly accurate, but 1924-25 champions, Gais. 1927 champions, Gais. 1930 champions, Gais. 1954 champions, Gais. Not much after that, I'll be honest. But the point I'm making here is, Gais have been relegated to the third division. Now, we've done this on previous shows. We talked about the most successful clubs and that kind of thing. They're the eighth most successful club in Swedish football history, guys, in terms of medals won and, gold medal placings, silver medal placings, that kind of thing. Behind Elfsborg, Djurgården, Helsingborg, AIK, Norrköping, IFK, Göteborg, and Malmö. And they've just been relegated to the third tier. They've lost a relegation playoff against Dalkurd. Now, I think I mentioned this on Twitter, and I said, this is stunning. I mean, obviously, I've lived in Gothenburg, so Gothenburg is the second most successful city in Sweden in terms of titles won. above Stockholm, by the way, 15 titles in Stockholm, 19 titles in Gothenburg. Okay, granted, EFK are 13 of them, but guys have got 4 of them, more than Hammarby, who have won. So we're talking about quite a big club here, in my opinion. Some might not agree. And by the way, Halmstad have 4 titles as well. So historically they've been a big club, but yeah, they've been relegated, and they will play 3rd division football next season, which is, as far as I'm concerned, incredible. It really is. They've had rough times. I've said it a few times on this podcast. We've got two teams in the 2nd division from Gothenburg, in Örgryte and EFK, that I consider quite big clubs. So
EFK, not in the Super.
Yeah, sorry, of course. I mean in the 2nd division though. Örgryte and Gais being in the 2nd division.
Oh yeah.
So for Gais to go down to the 3rd division is just, as far as I'm concerned, unthinkable. So especially to a team like Dalkurd. Don't forget, remember when Dalkurd were in the Allsvenskan a couple of years ago, Steve? They were averaging attendances of like 500. Or I think there was one game they had 120 fans in an Allsvenskan game. So really small club. But yeah, Gais are down, and they will play in the 3rd tier. So they're in a really dark place at the moment, guys. And yeah, that's just a noteworthy one. And the other thing I just mentioned on that, congratulations to Skovda, because they've been promoted to the Superettan as well. They've knocked Acropolis out, and so yeah, some changes in the Superettan next season.
We've got some managerial changes to talk about, which this might well impact to Norway as well. But the likes of Anders Torstensson, Milosevic, is it, at Hammarby? There's going to be, I'm going to have to be cracking up on that pronunciation next season, aren't I?
Yeah, it's looking like, well, I mean, I think what we'll do next week, just for listeners who might be wondering, I think next week we'll look at, because for example, there's been Allsvenskan awards tonight as well. There's a lot of end of season awards, that kind of thing. We'll have an overview of like who've been the best players, young players, that kind of thing. And this is the time of the season now, isn't it? When the season ends, there's loads of rumors going on. There's already loads of news to talk about, to be honest. Players leaving, players moving, players getting rumors and stuff, managers. So there's going to be a lot to talk about next week, I think. But we'll do that next week, I think, because we need to wrap it up maybe and move on to part 2. But the one little bit of news that I think is very relevant is that it looks like Milos, as you said, Milijevic, who obviously won the Swedish Cup with Hammarby this season, looks like he's off, and it's looking like a move to Rosenborg. So it's looking like, I mean, it'll probably be done by the time you listen to this podcast or thereabouts. I think there was a picture of him taken in Norway, so it looks like probably quite close. Although at the moment, Rosenborg's sporting director, who by the way is quite enjoys the Swedish market, he said no comment on it. But I think by the time you listen to this, it'll probably be done. So he'll be at Rosenborg. I'm not entirely sure about that. So jury's out for me on this manager. I think he's done some good things at Hammarby, but I think with Hammarby in general, I'm never that positive about them. I think they're a bit neither here nor there. So we'll talk about that again in the future. 39-year-old manager obviously took over from Stefan Billborn in the summer, led them to 5th place. But yeah, he looks like he'll be off. And one other rumor doing the rounds before we wrap up this show. Well, number 1, Kjetil Knutsen turned down Rosenborg. And number 2, Kjetil Knutsen is rumored to be on the way to Malmö. Now, if that was to happen, that could be a big, big change to Allsvenskan next season. So keep an eye on that space. The famous Bodø Glimt coach could be on his way to Sweden. Who knows? Yeah,
he turned down apparently record pay in Norwegian managerial terms. Rosenborg have been trying to get him for about a year or 2 anyway, but I think he's got his sights set on something a bit more bigger. Then before we end part 1, we've got to talk about Allsvenskan fantasy, haven't we, Jonathan? It was a very tight battle between myself and you in the NFP table. I finished 41st overall. You finished 42nd overall. Just a 9-point gap between us. Miles off the top, I must say. We must give our congratulations to the Rat Pack again at Norwich for winning. He was actually top 10 overall in the whole competition with 2,016 points. And he finished above Philip Christensen, who was close behind him, actually, 2,005 points. The top 5 rounded off by James Donnelly, Marcus Nielsen has the great name FC Bonk, and the Frick Show, Gerardo Lopez Lozada. So thank you, everyone, for participating in the NFP Allsvenskan Fantasy League. Personally delighted in my performance. I've been better in Sweden this year than the Eliteserien fantasy. I don't really know why. I think I prefer the point system actually in Sweden. It's weird. You tend to get more points, especially for defenders. But a very good competition, Jonathan.
Yeah, I'm still. You can probably hear it in my voice. I'm still getting over it. Absolutely gutting, losing the fantasy to Steve by what is it?
9 points.
9 points. I mean, I had 10 points on my bench with a move, so if nearly. But we talked about this before the show. I lost it in the summer, to be honest, when I forgot to change my team. Some transfers out, Okumu players like that, I left in my team, and ultimately, if you're not on it all season, it's a sprint, not a marathon, isn't it? I'm probably I don't know what am I. I'm probably trying to think of a football.
I felt like Newcastle United in the 90s.
No, entertaining, but you always got a part of the season where you lose, you take your eye off it. Maybe I'm like Malmö, took the eye off it during Europe, and then tried to recover it, or Djurgården. But that's gutting, to be honest. Once I saw you had Stefanelli in your team on the last day, I had my double chips, I had my strikers double points, and I thought I was going to nick it on the final day with Stefanelli. But once I saw he was in your team, I knew it was toast. So the game was over, and I just ran out of games. 86 points. I was happy with that. But I think if I had one more round this season, I would have caught you. But at the end of the day, I mean, listen, I'll come for you next season. It'll keep the exciting thing, and it's nice to be 41st and 42nd. I think that's quite a nice touch. The two lads on this show, and before we do wrap up, I want to sort of say well done, by the way, to Neil Baxter, a friend of the pod, in 31st. Neat versus Swedes is always in it, and these came 29th. Couple of names we always keep an eye out for. FPL Oakwell finished 19th. Fair play to him. Robert Barlow, and a few others. Heskebo in 12th, and of course, as you've mentioned there, the winners. You gave them a shout out on Twitter, didn't you, Steve?
Yeah, honestly, fair play to. I mean, a lot of these people when they first started doing the fantasy in Norway, Sweden, they were nowhere, and they've come and they've really done well. And I tip my hat off to you. My tail's up now. I feel like I need to be looking up rather than down. Norwich, I'm coming for you next year. I'm just trying to get a bit giddy now. Actually, I'm starting to get a bit giddy.
This is big talk.
No, I can't be. No, I can't be. No, I won't be that high up. But I need to. You're coming on my back. I need to improve. I need to raise my game even more. But it's a good little competition, and I'm looking at some good names. Pat Scout, people like that. Neil Baxter. FPL Oakwell, well done, and we'll settle the league up next season. Hopefully, and get even more in. I think we've got well over probably nearly 200 in this league, is it? No, over 100 now. And this was something that was quite small when it started. So Fantasy Allsvenskan is a different point system to like your regular fantasy games like Premier League and stuff. So I quite like the little bit of the little twist they've got, and the chip. They've still got the part of the bush chip, which is a hell of a thing, isn't it? You got 5 captains in one game day. If you can go massive, or you can completely balls it up. So really good game, Allsvenskan fantasy.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it. I mean, next season I've got to try and be more consistent. That's the key, really. I can't believe I've let you beat me. It's just unbelievable. But I think next year maybe I'll try and take Norway more seriously, because that is always hopeless for me. I don't even check my team. But thanks to everyone who's joined. I mean, if we can get more than 100 next season again, then I'll be pretty happy with that. Shall we name the bottom place? I don't think I will, but we've had 110 people in the league this season, and that's a decent effort, I think, to be honest. So, and by the way, if Wasson is listening, Oscar Holt and Kalmar, you're in the relegation zone, my friend. So, don't know how many Kalmar players you had, but you finished in the relegation zone in this season. But 110.
That can't be right, because Kalmar had such a good year. He's going to surely have 3 Kalmar players every week. Yeah,
it says a lot though that we got 110, and let's see if we can get a few more next season, because the league seems to be growing. There's a lot more interest. The podcast's been very popular this year, so thank you to everyone who's listened to us and covered our coverage of Sweden this season. I hope we've done Allsvenskan proud, and I hope you've enjoyed our coverage of the race. And of course, maybe next week we'll sort of do a bit of a more general overview. So if you've got questions, send them into on Twitter at Nordic Football, or you can email us nordicfootballpod@gmail.com. And of course, ask any questions you got, and maybe we'll sort of wrap it up with a bit more of an analytical look at the league and the top scorers, things like that. So I think that's about it for part 1. But congratulations to MFF champions again.
Yes. Fear not, there will be an Allsvenskan season review before Christmas, so watch out for that. episode at some point in the next week or two. But yeah, that's it for this particular section. Join us after the break because there was the Eliteserien was bonkers. Generally, the penultimate round of Allsvenskan Eliteserien was bonkers at the weekend, and we look forward to the final round there in Norway. So join us after the break.
Welcome to part 2 of this episode of the Nordic Football Podcast. And we're heading off over to Norway now. And you're a little bit behind us, aren't you, in Sweden there, Steve? You're 1 round behind. So the season is gearing up for one hell of a finale. Let's be honest. We've got 1 game left. And I'm not going to... I'll let you set the scene. But I'm just going to read to you the results from this this round of games. And then you can kind of set the scene for us of what we're looking for ahead of the last round of games. But yeah, the most recent run of fixtures, we had, let me just get it. We had Budeglimt 2, Brand 2, Molde 3, Lillestrøm 3, Sandefjord 3, Kristiansand 2, Sarpsborg 0, Tromsø 1, Stabæk 1, Rosenborg 3, Strømsgodset 0, Haugesund 0, Vålerenga 2, Mjøndalen 0, and Viking 3, Odd 1. Now, before I ask you about the table and that, Steve, for you, what was the standout result from this round of games, penultimate round of games?
Well, the 2 standout results were obviously Molde and Budeglimt, drawing 3-3 and 2-2. I was expecting I wasn't expecting a dramatic day, to be honest, Jonathan. I was expecting regulation stuff, and it turned that into absolutely batshit mental.
Yeah, I mean, craziness. Let me just recap the table as well. So we got 1 more game left of the season. We got Budeglimt on 60 points, plus 31 goal difference. We got Molde on 57 points, plus 29 goal difference. So that could be key, that goal difference, by the way, at the end of this season. Then you got Viking in 3rd, 54 points. So that's looking like, they've wrapped up 3rd place. In fact, pretty much have. You got Rosenborg in 4th, obviously 47 points. So we'll talk about them maybe as a bit of a disappointing season for them. Down there in 4th, and they could even finish as low as 6th potentially, depending on final games of the season. And then we look towards the bottom. You've got Odd safe now, so we know for a fact that 1 of these 3 teams will be in the relegation playoff, and 2 of them will go down. It's going to be 1 of Stabæk, Brann, Mjøndalen. 2 of them are going. 1 of them is going to the relegation playoff. Steve, what are your thoughts?
Well, let's start at the top of the table here, and I fully expected Budeglimt and Molde to win fairly easily, and both should have. Molde probably should have been 2 or 3-0 up inside 10 minutes, and Budeglimt got an early goal from a corner, and by half time, I kid you not, they probably should have been 6 or 7-0 up. I'm not joking either. It was crazy. So Budeglimt finally got a second goal, 67th minute, and you think that game's done. In the same time, it was going mental in Molde. Like Lillestrøm went 2-0 up. They were hit the post, should have been 3-0. Then Molde came back. They scored 3 goals in 15, 20 minutes, something like that. And you think, well, they're going to win. And then there was a Thomas Lehn Olsen free kick late on, which equalised for Lillestrøm. At the same time, in Budeglimt, somehow, Brann had been massively outplayed all game. They got a goal back from nowhere. So it made sort of a nervous last 10 minutes. Even then, Budeglimt should have confirmed their lead, got a 3rd goal. And then literally the last kick of the game, and he did this against Sandefjord as well recently, Bård Finner equalised from a corner. Goalkeeper was up and everything. And there was a flick on, and he got an incredible point for Brann, which, I said last week they've had no luck this year. That they had incredible luck here. If that goal, that could be a massive goal for them, because if they win now, the final game in Stabæk drew, for example, then they would get in the playoff on goal difference. So it was a crazy situation. Really, both Molde and Budeglimt, they should have both won fairly easily for me in terms of the chances missed. But, it turns out, Budeglimt were literally seconds from winning the title. Molde still probably had about 4 or 5 minutes to play after that, in fairness. Who knows what would have happened? Maybe Molde might have gone and won the game then if that had happened. But it was a mental situation. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. And, it's all on the line for next week.
Yeah, I mean, I caught some of that Glimt Brand game. I've got to be honest. I thought it could have been about 5 goals in the first half. So some of the chances missed were incredible. Glimt, I've seen a bit of Glimt in the last few weeks, and they seem to sort of like have a really nice setup, but they just kind of, I caught some of the Rosenborg game as well, which they didn't win that either. And they just seem to be sort of stumbling a little bit, don't they? Two consecutive, 3 draws in their last 4 games, in fact, back-to-back draws. Is that an issue? Because, the game, both games, really, to be honest, the Glimt game, the Brand game and the Rosenborg game, I was watching it and thinking, I mean, they're just opening them up. They're opening them up at will in terms of the possession, and you can see like really nice pass and move. And I was thinking, they're going to rip these teams apart, and then they can't even get the win. Does that concern you a little bit, or has that been a trend? Because my other reference point was them that 6-1 when it did come off against Roma. So, what's going on with Glimt at the moment? I mean, they should get the job done, right? But are you a little bit concerned about how they've been recently?
Yeah, I mean, the funny thing is, I think this was actually probably one of their best performances of the season in terms of, this reminded me more of last year, that they could have run riot and they should have run riot. They hammered Brand, I think, 6-0 this fixture last year, and it should have been the same. But they haven't been as free-flowing this term, Jonathan. They've been nicking games like 1-0, 2-0, 2-1s. And generally, they've not been as, it's not been wave after wave of attack. They've been quite clinical at times or found a way to win games. This was different. They were so dominant. It was crazy, but the chances were missed. Pellegrino had a shambolic game. He was terrible. He was wearing this beanie hat, and his fashion sense looked bloody awful on the day anyway. And I know it's cold up there, but come on, man up a little bit. And he was missing chance after chance. And I'm not just talking this is huge opportunities, like one-on-ones. His final decision seemed terrible. A few others were quite guilty as well. And you cannot let teams linger in matches, Jonathan, in my opinion. You can't. And I mean, at 2-0, that should be enough. But someone is always going to have a period in the game where they come back into it at some point. And Brand just happened to get that goal back. And then the last 10 minutes, it's one of those nervous, anything can happen, can't it? When there's one goal in the game. It was an improbable draw for Brand, like a miracle draw. I said before this game, they need a miracle. They kind of got one. Whether or not it's going to be enough for them, ultimately, I don't know. But look, I'm not particularly worried because I think Mjøndalen away, they should dominate that game and they should get the point they need. They're coming into it on the back of a trip to the Ukraine in the Europa Conference League. I don't think they're going to be at their absolute best. And, they're going to be nervous, aren't they? If Mjøndalen get on top of them physically, you just never know. And I can't believe it has gone to the final day of the season, but this is the situation. In Molde at the same time, they can probably kick themselves if they didn't win. If they'd won that game, then Buda Glimt are going to have to go to Mjøndalen and actually get the 3 points. So in a way, there's regrets from Molde as well. And their defence let them down. That's been a theme for the season as well. They haven't been defensively secure enough.
Yeah, I mean, I can't comment on Pellegrino's fashion sense, although I did find it a bit strange because I was thinking with the headwear, what happens if he has to go up for a header? But at the same time, I mean, I can't disagree with you on the chances. Some of the chances he missed, I mean, I couldn't believe some of them. He tripped over his own feet at one point. So, a bit of an off day for him, bit of an off day for Glimt. In the meantime, Molde, late drama.
Yeah, he had a bad game, Pellegrino. He's had a lot of good games in the last 2 or 3 years, by the way. I feel a little bit harsh singling him out, but look, he's not won a title before. A lot of the other team have, and you can kind of sense that. Maybe he's kind of choked in the moment. Who knows? Molde, well, this was a great game to watch. I mean, both teams just went for it totally. Defensively, Molde have not been strong this year, and excuse me, they conceded 39 goals, which is a lot. They've scored a lot though as well. So, this match contained the 2 highest scorers in the league, Thomas Len Olsen and Uhi. They've now got 26 goals each. They're both bagged in this game. And one of them, I think, is going to get the golden boot unless Berisha scores like 5 in the last game. It was a really good... I mean, Lillestrøm have been very good this year. I mean, I'll talk about them in sort of the end of season review show. They've been a breath of fresh air. They came here. They had a go. They could have conceded a few more, but it was clear what the strategy was. We're going to have a go at you here, Molde, and we're going to try and get a few goals. And it served them well. And there was a chance it hit the post. If it had gone 3-0, I think Lillestrøm would have won that game. I really do. But Molde kind of deserved to come back because there was a barrage of pressure. They created a lot of chances in this game. And it was just a brilliant free kick, actually, with like 2 minutes to go from Thomas Len Olsen. It was a beautiful free kick. There's not much anyone can do about that. That ultimately made it 3-3. I think the message came through. By the way, this is what annoyed me in the Buda Glimt game. You got the guy on the speaker and the stadium announcer constantly telling the updates in the scores in the Molde game. It was like, when it went 3-3, he was like, oh, there's been a goal at the Aker Stadium. It's 3-3, and he's like celebratory mood, everything. I didn't like that. I think that puts a lot of pressure on the players. It's like the fans were getting up and like, oh, we're going to win the league. And there's like, it was this constant update of results. And I personally didn't like that. I think it went against the players in Glimt. But yeah, I mean, Molde will look back on this day and they might have a regret. Who knows? If they got to 59 points now, suddenly the pressure really is on Glimt, isn't it? But as it happens, they just need a point in Mjøndalen. Molde must beat Haugesund away. They've actually beat Haugesund in the last 9 head-to-head meetings. I checked this the other day. So I imagine Molde will get the win that they need. It's just a question of whether Buda Glimt get the point that they need.
Yeah, sounds like a bit like a sort of Norwegian Jeff Stelling or something like that. So fair play to him. I mean, in third place, you mentioned about Viking, and there's a big battle for fourth, as I talked about. Firstly, what are your thoughts on Viking? Because that's a decent achievement for them, isn't it? I think you did to do well this season, and just tell us about the battle for fourth with Rosenborg in there. We've already talked about them maybe getting a new manager. I mean, what's your outlook on that last day of the season, fourth place battle?
Sure, I think Sean Constable tweeted something a few weeks ago, maybe a month or two ago, about Viking, saying that no one pre-season fancied them to do anything, and they were kind of down on them, and they've done really well and they finished third. They've almost gone under the radar in third, actually, Jonathan. I think I had them down in fifth spot by default, really, just by the sheer quality in the squad. But they've obviously done a lot better than people would have thought. 54 points is a very good achievement for them. And they confirmed that with a 3-1 win against Odd. Comfortably third. Fair play to them. This is well clear of the likes of Rosenborg, Vålerenga. And, that battle for fourth. Rosenborg look like they're going to get it. They should beat Godset. Fourth place would be big because the winner of the Norwegian Cup, if it is one of the top three, then Rosenborg would get into Europe. It won't be Rosenborg. They're already knocked out of the Norwegian Cup. So they'll be hoping one of the top three do get that cup, and then they get into Europe again next season if they win on the final day. But Lillestrøm or Vålerenga could still finish fourth technically, so all to play for there. It's been a very poor year for Rosenborg, even for that. I mean, they've had a few lean years recently, but for them, if they don't win the game, they're not even going to get 50 points, which is terrible. They need a massive reset. You can see why they've put all their eggs into like the Kjetil Knudsen basket and tried to lure him there. Whether this guy at Hammarby is going to be the answer, I don't know. They definitely need a big reset though and a big change. But they should still get fourth. But it's all to play for with Lillestrøm, Vålerenga. Them two would want to finish above each other as well. Two big rivals. And it looks like Christiansen. In fact, Christiansen, I think, will be finishing 6th or 7th. They've really gone off the boil in the last 10 games.
Yeah, like you said, a big reset. And, Rosenborg, a team we haven't talked about a huge amount this season, which I think in a way is almost an indictment on just how poor they've been, really, because they are, they're the biggest team in the league, really. So, yeah, disappointing times for them. So it's going to be, well, let's see what their new manager can do. And if they can wrap up that fourth place. Moving down the bottom, we talked about briefly about the bottom three teams that could go down, but Odd survive. What are your thoughts on that? Is that that's a decent achievement for them, isn't it?
I think they've been very lucky. Odd have had a shockingly poor finish to the season. 1 win in 14 games. No one really talked about them, but I tell you what, I wouldn't, if they, if some of them teams below had a bit more about them, like Starbek, say they beat Rosenborg. I mean, then Starbek are playing Odd the final game. Odd could easily have got sucked into this relegation playoff position. So I think they've just scraped over the line. I've not been impressed with them at all. And they're in such a bad form that I don't think I'd have fancied them in the playoff either, to be honest with you. Very poor season for them. I want to give credit to a couple of teams, Tromsø and Sandefjord, who played really well recently to secure their positions in the Eliteserien next season. Tromsø especially. I think they've hardly lost a game in the last 10. And, we're coming down to this bottom three battle, Jonathan. Mjøndalen on 22 points, Brand 23, and Starbek 25 points. If Starbek beat Odd, they'll be in the playoff. If Brand win, Starbek draw or lose, then Brann will be in the playoff. And if Mjøndalen were to beat Bodø/Glimt and Brann were not to win and Starbek were to not win either, then Starbek would have to lose for Mjøndalen to get in. I mean, there's still a chance Mjøndalen could make the playoff. If they do that, then my word, that would be something special. I really think the odds are against them. But look, do you believe in destiny, Jonathan? That Brann goal, there's something about it. I feel like it's really significant for them. I'm like, my head tells me Starbek should go to Odd and win. Odd have nothing to play for at all now at all. Starbek should get the win. But something tells me that goal last week for Brann is going to mean something. And almost my heart says that Brann are going to get the playoff.
Yeah, I mean, as I mentioned, I was watching that Glimt-Brann game, and honestly, I thought I switched off before the end. I thought Glimt would wrap this up quite comfortably. And as you say, sometimes in the season, you just have these pivotal moments. The 2 points behind, they've got a better goal difference actually than Starbek. I mean, we've had Starbek's manager on the show, haven't we, this season? What's been going on there? Because obviously they've been, all three teams at the bottom have kind of had periods of the season where you've sort of really worried about them, haven't they? But they've all scrapped about just about giving themselves a chance. But we are going to lose two of them. So, number one question is, who do you think will lose? And number two is, who would you like to survive?
I do think Mjøndalen will go down. And for them to beat, even if they beat Bodø/Glimt, they're probably not going to stay up. Because you've got to think one of Brann or Starbek will win their game. Or, if Starbek would just need a draw to relegate them then. So I think they will go down. I think even Mjøndalen would probably admit them that they probably deserve to go down. They just haven't got the resources, the quality. I don't want to knock them in anyway because I think they've done incredible to get to the final game, still with a chance of surviving. So I tip my hat there. I think Erik Schoner, Starbek has done a good job coming in, and they were really down there right at the bottom, struggling. I think he would like to have done a bit more. I think he'll look at certain games and think, we could have got a few more points there, and they might be in the playoff now. And Brann, I said last week that I can't believe such a big club look like they're heading down. They've dug in as well a bit recently. They've scored some late goals under Erik Horneland. So, they've all shown plenty of fight. I'll say that much. I've got a gut feeling that Brann are going to go in the playoff. That goal has to mean something last week. I'm going to say Brann make the playoff, even though logically Starbek should be Odd. And then I actually think whoever goes in the playoff, even if it was somehow Mjøndalen, I think they will win the playoff because I'm just looking at the teams that are left in that now. And it is KFUM Oslo or Jerv. They face off. Whoever wins that match places the winner of the 14th place, finishing 14th in the Eliteserien. Over 2 legs. I think it's 2 legs anyway this year. It was 1 leg last year, but I think it's 2 this. I would imagine that surely whoever the Eliteserien side should have too much now that Fredrikstad have been eliminated.
Yeah, it's kind of sad in a way because we've had Erik Schoner on the pod. We've had the Mjøndalen manager on the pod, haven't we? Vegard Hansen, is it?
Yeah.
And, we haven't had anyone from Brann, so yeah, see you later to Brann. I don't really care about you lot. Answer your emails and your phone calls if you want some sympathy from me. But no, I'm joking. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I've got to say, both managers endeared me in the interviews we had with them. So I thought Erik Schoner spoke really well about football. Obviously, he talked about how he grew up on Football Manager and kind of turned into a very young manager. And, he's got his ideas. So good luck to him. And obviously, Vegard Hansen, I still remember that episode. I really enjoyed it. And I still say I want to get him back on the show if we can. If you can ever get him back on, Steve, I don't know if you'll fancy it. But good luck to both of them. And obviously, as you said, Brann are always a well-supported club. And I get the sense that you maybe have a little bit of a soft spot for them in terms of staying up. But, you do describe them as the Liverpool of Norway as well. So, part of me is thinking, yeah, goodbye.
I hope I hope the Eliteserien side stays up. I don't want to have to do any extra research on a team like Jerv or KFUM Oslo. And to be honest, neither of them sides particularly endear me too much. Nothing against either. But I mean, Jerv were in this playoff a few years ago. KFUM Oslo, I can't imagine either side are going to really add much to the league. No offence. If it had been Fredrikstad, I would have been totally for Fredrikstad coming back up. I have a big soft spot for them. And I'm disappointed they got knocked out on penalties by K from Oslo in the playoff. So I would have loved to have seen them come back, but now that I've got to cheer for probably Stabæk or Brann, who will be the playoff. And I think whoever does make it in the playoff from the Eliteserien should go through over 2 legs. They're a lot better in terms of the quality, and that's the way I see it. One more thing before we do finish off, I want to give my massive congratulations to Sturdals Blink on surviving in the Obos-ligaen, to Tom Dent, who was on this show not too long ago. We had a great interview with him. He has torn up trees there to get Sturdals Blink to that survival. He had to come through a playoff match. They lost the first leg 3-2 against Hud, but they won the second leg 3-0. And Tom Dent is a man for the big game. And he proved his pedigree there to keep Blink in the Obos-ligaen. So well done, Tom. Well done, Sturdals Blink.
Yeah, massive congratulations. You know what I'll say about that Blink, the footage from the weekend? I didn't think they had that many fans. I saw like flares and people running on the pitch, and like I saw a lot of social media after that game. Kind of people going crazy. And I got to say, I didn't realize they were that well supported. I don't know if it was just because of that game or whatever, but yeah, huge achievement. Obviously, saw Tom. I'm sure he's probably had a bit of a hangover in the last few days, but no, massive congratulations on that one. That's a big achievement, I think, isn't it? So yeah, we've also had him on the show as well. So we've got quite a few friends in Nordic region these days, haven't we, on this podcast? So yeah, no, really well done on that as well. And yeah, we've already talked about the Obos playoffs, so I guess that probably wraps it up for this week.
Yeah, we've got this final round to come. The key matches that stand out, obviously, are Mjøndalen against Bodø/Glimt, Molde away at Haugesund, Brann against Sarpsborg, and Stabæk go to Odd, really. The other matches don't matter that much. There's that battle for fourth, like I said. But, I think Brann will win. Brann should beat Sarpsborg at home. Sarpsborg maybe now on the beach a little bit. They had a good run, but last game, nothing at stake. And, it comes down to Odd Stabæk, and logically it should be Stabæk that win that game. Like Odd have just nothing at stake anymore. And but they're in, because the pressure's on them, they're in that driving seat, they're expected to probably to win. Will the pressure get to them, and that extra goal difference of Brann, will be enough. I've got a feeling that Glimt will only just scrape home, actually, Jonathan, either with a draw or with a very close win. But I do think they will get the title done. I like both teams, but I do hope that Bodø/Glimt win the league, because I don't think they're going to be winning too many leagues going forward. If Kjetil probably leaves the club somewhere within the next year or two, doesn't he, at least? So I think for them to be back up there would be something sensational going forward. Molde, they're going to be fine. They're going to win plenty of leagues in the next decade. And I think Bodø/Glimt have just edged it this year because of their better defence, but good luck to both. Good luck to both. I like Molde are a good watch. They're a good watch, from a neutral. You probably get more entertainment watching them than Bodø/Glimt this year, actually, funny enough. But that's my prediction for the final round, Jonathan. I don't know if you'll be tuning in at all here.
So basically, Glimt to sneak it. I wanted to ask you about that actually before we go. And based on what we said in part one, do you think this could be his last league game for the club?
Yeah, definitely. I think so. He's been linked to a lot of places in the last certainly 5 or 6 months now. And it just feels like, win the league here again, be a good time to sign off. There's not really much more he can achieve at Bodø/Glimt apart from perhaps winning the Conference League or something. And I think it probably would be a good time for him to move on, but he's got to find the right club for him. Obviously, Rosenborg he doesn't feel is the right move for him because he's rejected them on numerous occasions from what some sources say. Is a hell of a manager. Bodø/Glimt, they're still a good setup, by the way, Glimt. They're not just going to go from first to 15th or something. They will themselves bring in a manager that fits their philosophies. They've got a good backroom team in there. Some might go with Kjetil, who knows, but they'll have a good core up there. They're going to lose players as well, but they've got good recruitment. They're not going to go away, but I think it'd be really hard for them to, challenge for probably titles after Kjetil's gone. I think this will be his last league match for the club, personally.
Yes, and you mentioned there in terms of players and that kind of thing with Glimt, maybe the end of the Knutzel reign potentially could be his last league game. We've had some news as well, haven't we? Some transfer news. Fredrik Andre Bjorkan is moving to Hertha Berlin their left back. So that's also a big move for him. So, this could be the final. This could be the end of the
I mean, I was disappointed when I heard that news because he's been linked to Leeds. We need a left back. Junior Firpo's bloody awful. So I would have liked to get Bjerkan in. You'll think he'll go well at Hertha Berlin, actually. Great move. But, they're gradually going to lose these players. Patrick Berg. Probably Ulrich Saltners might even get a move somewhere good. I mean, but, they've got a good conveyor belt. But to replace these big dogs, it takes a lot of doing. And, I think it's a big day for Bodø/Glimt. They've got to make sure they get this title because, like I say, you don't get many chances to win titles if you're a club like Bodø/Glimt going in, and they've got to snatch it. I think they will. They've got enough about them. Mjøndalen, fundamentally, let's be logical. Mjøndalen are just not in the same league, but they're fighting for their lives as well. And suddenly Brann and Stabæk start losing. Who knows? They might become animals and just go play above their level or something. But I think it's going to be a dramatic final day potentially. I never expected this for the final day. I thought most of the stuff would be decided a few weeks ago. I'd have thought it's all wrapped up, but yeah, plenty at stake. I'm looking forward to it. Sunday, 4 p.m. UK time, all 8 matches start at the same time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it, mate.
Yeah, and let's be honest. As you said with a team like Glimt, you don't want to lose it when you've been so good over the last few years on the last day, do you, to Molde? Because who knows? There might not be too many of these to come. So let's just I'll just recap the last few games just for those who. The last round of games, just for those I know you've already given the key ones, but I'll just wrap through all of them. Sunday, the 12th of December, Brann Sarpsborg, Haugesund Molde, Kristiansund v Vålerenga, Lillestrøm against Sandefjord, Mjøndalen against Glimt, Odd against Stabæk, Rosenborg, Strømsgodset, and Tromsø against Viking. So that is your lot. Tune in if you can. Next week we'll kind of wrap up the season, won't we? I think, Steve, in a bit more, maybe a bit more analytical way. So if you've got questions, as I said, we'll know who's on the league by then, so we can obviously delve into that as well. It's going to be an interesting final day. So yeah, it sounds like it's going to be really good. Thanks for tuning in. I've quite enjoyed this podcast. Hope you have as well. As I say, massive congratulations to Malmö, and we will see who the champions of Norway are this time next week. So thanks for listening.
Yeah, and we will also catch up on Eliteserien fantasy next week as well. I've not been doing so well in that, but I think we've got a runaway winner in our league. Emil Magnus Jakobsen, called Juvelin United. He's 100 points clear in our league, incredibly. So he's absolutely smashed the hell out of it. His overall rank is 6 out of anyone in the whole competition. So I think we can fair enough say congratulations to him, unless something goes dramatically wrong final game. But we'll talk about that. We'll have the final round review, and also say going forward before Christmas, we always have this season review for both leagues. So yeah, thanks very much for listening. Stay safe, take care, and I'll see you next time. Goodbye, everyone.
Bye, everyone.